Good morning, Celtic fans, and welcome back to the channel. Remember, if you see this video this morning, Saturday, give it a big, huge thumbs up. So, right into the Celtic FC news this morning. Breaking news yesterday was that GIAKOUMAKIS is obviously leaving Celtic, and he has went over to Amsterdam for a medical. Now, the fact that he's in Amsterdam doing a medical suggests one of two things: he's going to somewhere in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, or he is going to Japan. And the reason that he'd be going to Amsterdam for it is because you've got a bigger hub in Amsterdam airport and Schiphol, and that would be easier to get a flight down towards Japan. So we look at that. I don't know about it. It's one of those crazy things. There was someone that said a couple of weeks back that if he does play in Japan, and I'm going to dig out that comment, if he goes to Japan, you're never going to watch football again. But look at Ange Postecoglou and see what he says about it, and the fact that it is the player that's making this move happen. It is not the club, it is not the manager, it is the player that is forcing this issue, it is the player that is looking for other opportunities, it is the player and his agent. What does that say about him as a man, as a player, and the fact that, you know, Celtic are going for a double, we're going for like 2 in a row, we could get the treble, he's got the chance of winning medals, but he wants out at this time of year. It's bizarre. It's completely bizarre. So we'll go over that as well. And then I want to look at the Premiership, the English Premiership, because the manager over the road has been complaining and moaning and always talking about the fact he must be one of Ange's biggest fans, because he's always talking about how lucky he is. But how lucky are Celtic really when you see the fact that Chelsea have just spent over 300 million in this $317 million in this transfer window? That's an absurd amount of money, and when you look at the players that they're bringing in, it is a lot of, you know, I don't fancy that league at all. I mean, people say it's the best league in the world, it's the best league in Europe, but it maybe is sometimes, but when you watch Spanish football on a weekly basis and you see the skill level, even at some of the lower teams, you're like, just, you know. Anyway, moving on, then we jump over to the comment section and we'll see what's saying in the comments yesterday. So, the Greek striker has been given permission by Celtic to finalise terms and undergo a medical in Amsterdam. So what does that say? It says he's definitely on his way out the door. The fact that the manager brought in O as a player. Now I'm going to talk about that as well, because the manager obviously said that they've been looking at O and they wanted him to be one of the first in through the transfer window, which suggested that they have got a long-term plan for this guy. And I also think they were probably going to bring in one of the other strikers that they'd been looking at, purely for the fact that he was a little bit older and a little bit more experienced. And that's my thinking behind it anyway. I think that there has been maybe one or two players that we maybe were after. And as Ange said in his interview yesterday, it was always a fantastic interview with this manager. I've never seen a manager that likes talking so in depth about the way that, and the thinking behind it does the transfer deals at Celtic. He says that he prefers to have phone calls with the player to make sure that they are a good fit. And you know, there's been too many times in the past that Celtic are just buying players, they bring in players because they're good players, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that, and we can sell them on. But if you look back to the Tommy Burns era, where we had the three amigos, who were fantastic players in their own right, but they all had ambitions to move on. And you know, I love the way that this manager runs the club, and people are saying it was Peter Lawwell that runs the club in the background and everything. I think the mindset that Ange put on show yesterday on why he does deals and how he does deals, and obviously it leaves the financial side to Nicholson and co, but he does get involved early on and wants to speak to them to make sure. And he also said that he spoke to players and he said no, they won't be a good fit, and they walks away from a deal. He tells them not to go ahead with the deal, which is fantastic and honest. It's something that we've never had in the past with a Celtic manager. So with the manager being so bloody lucky the way he is and having all this money, according to the Sevco, how lucky are we when you look at the spending down south? I mean, Southampton spent 8 million on a player, 12 million on a player. West Ham 15 million on a player. Wolves, they're spending a little bit less, 9 million, 4.4, 3.3. But then you jump up to, I mean, Liverpool, 37 million. It just shows you the football money. And Leeds, 35 million. Bloody Leeds spending big again. Leicester, 17 million. Manchester United bringing in 2 players on loan. Chelsea And this is where it gets really funky. I mean, they spent over 300 million in this transfer window. Why did they not come in for the 25 million for Juranovic when you look at what they're spending? So they brought in a player from Shakhtar Donetsk, 89 million. PSV Eindhoven player, 30 million. Bring in a player from Atletico Madrid on loan. Monaco player, 35 million. Modo player, 10 million. And another player at 18 million. Who's the lucky ones here? I mean, we should never compare Scottish football. In fact, the rest of Europe doesn't even bother trying competing with England when it comes down to money, because we all know that league is held up by the money that is paid from Sky. And talking about big names and big names moving, obviously we spoke about Juranovic has left and old Gio is heading out the door with his medical in Amsterdam. We're going to jump over to the comment section and see what you're saying about all this yesterday. So Mark Yule is first up. Some folks need to take a chill pill, enjoy what's happening at Celtic right now, because after the disaster of the 10 in a row season, I'm going to put a fly amongst the pigeons here. A cat amongst the pigeons even. That's the dog that's making a noise. Anyway, I always said years ago when I run the Rafferty bus in Kirkcaldy for many a year, I said, as well we're getting closer to the 10 at the time, beware for what, because I always knew that they would go out their way to overspend and do everything possible to make sure that we didn't get the 10. A lot of people will say it was down to COVID, a lot of people will say it was down to the no fans in the stadium, but the fact is that they spent big that season to make sure that they were in with a shout to try and stop us. And Celtic let their foot off the gas, as a banner said years before, don't take your foot off the pedal. You know, we should have been way much further in front than we were going into the 10 in a row season. So Mark goes on to say, nothing the club can do if players wish to go elsewhere. Sad to see good players leave, but as long as they're replaced by good or hopefully better, we can't have any complaints. But then again, some folks, just like a good moan, we are champions. That's who we are. We definitely are, Mark. And then Dim Sum says, missed the news, so much grumpy drama now. Yeah, there's even more grumpy drama today. I would like Gigi to stay with Glasgow Celtic, says James Welsh. Well, James, the fact is that the player wants to leave. Celtic are not pushing the guy out the door. We're not trying to cash in on our investment for once. So they're not trying to sell him on for big money, which is completely bizarre, and it's something that Celtic have never really done. So we would all like him to stay, but when it's the player's mindset, you know, Ange is probably like saying, right, your mindset is not right, you don't want to be here, right, we'll do all we can. And it's not actually Celtic that's doing it, it's his agent that's doing it, it's him that is a player that's actually pushing this forwards. You know, Celtic aren't out there saying, look, come and buy our player. It's his agent and himself as a player that's pushing this forward. So what do you think of that, James? If you could tell me in the comments today. Joseph Docherty says, look, Celtic hold all the aces. If we don't get the deal we want, we keep him. And yep, we do, but it's the case that the player wants to go. I don't trust Lowell, says Fast Tank. Well, you're in the same boat as me. He's done a good job over the years, but I know groups that have had talks with him, and I've had a run in with myself years ago. But you know, it's one of those things. He ran the club really well from a financial point of view. There was a lot of things that he did with collusion and everything, but we've missed that out. And Stephen Donahoe says Gigi will play tomorrow and score a hat-trick. No, he won't, Stephen. I'm afraid. I don't think he will. I think he's on his way out. Yeah, and I got the days and times and everything mixed up with I was so busy yesterday morning. Kick-off is Sunday UK time, so it means it's 5 o'clock here in Spain. Kookaburra says Atlanta won GIAKOUMAKIS on loan. Tell them to get the fuck. And basically the big Greek ones out of paradise. There's always Japan. Yep. It looks like I've got a funny feeling he might end up in a Dutch club. It's just something until I see that this deal is done and he's on a flight to Japan, or he's in Japan getting paraded. I think that there might be a little sneaky thing that he could end up in a club in Holland. JJ thinks Brown Warriors is talking a load of Brown. Anyway, on that note, Sandwich Boy says, I think he's still making a huge mistake. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a big thumbs up. I shall see you tomorrow morning. And then I might do a live in Paddy's Point tomorrow after the game, depending, because it might just be all the old buggers that are in. And I know some of the old buggers will be watching. So see you tomorrow, lads. On that note, have a great day, Celtic fans all around the world.
lit. Roll up to the party, roll up